Hello everybody. This video covers the features and functionality which are now available in Release 18 of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rule set for Fantasy Grounds. There's a lot of new functionality and also some changed functionality, and this video will cover at a high level a lot of those changes, and subsequent videos will go into deeper detail around some of the key areas. So when you load up a Pathfinder 2nd Edition rule set in Fantasy Grounds, you can see that you've got Release 18 if you see the PF2 Release 18 details in the chat window. As a lot of code has changed in this release, there could well be a number of extensions that may no longer work correctly with this rule set. So please make sure that you only load extensions that have no impact on the Pathfinder rule set or that are actually compatible with that rule set. Otherwise, you may encounter errors or you may encounter functionality that won't work correctly. For example, the Save Result Description Clarification extension, that uses code from over a year ago, and that will completely nullify a lot of the new functionality in this rule set. So make sure that you only run extensions which are compatible and have been updated for this rule set. A lot of the changes in Release 18 are character focused, and so I'm going to start by going through changes in the character sheet. So I'm just going to create a tester PC here. There's really no changes on the main tab. The combat tab has changed quite significantly now. Now there's attack proficiencies and there's character effects, both of which I'll go through later. Skills, there's no real change there. Abilities, no real change there, except you can now change the ordering of the abilities in 3 of these panes. You can change it by the level ascending, the name, or level descending, and we'll see this as we put in entries into this character. Inventory, the only change is that there's the show on mini sheet has been removed from here, and there's no real change to the notes tab or to the actions tab. So one of the key things that is new or has been expanded in Release 18 is automation related to records that when they're placed on the character sheet, they do some form of automation. Now previously, for a lot of character generation, when a certain record was added to a character sheet, there was code that would look for some keywords in the title or potentially the description of that ability, feature, or feat, and carry out a certain task within that code. That was all hard-coded, and it made it quite difficult to expand that out over the new products that are coming on board and the new functionality that's available with new classes, new feats, new ancestries, new heritages, etc., etc. So in Release 18, a lot of that old code is there, but now we have new code that actually embeds automation within records. And at this stage, there's a lot of examples of that are set up at some of the low-level abilities, and in future there'll be more and more of that actually hard-coded into the data that's provided in the DLC. Release 18 is all about getting that code out into the live environment, trying it out, making some changes and making it work for the best that we can for the users and for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition data. So as an example, I'm just going to quickly run through creating a character and show you some of the automation, how it works and how it actually interacts. In the past, the character generation tracker, which is this additional window that was opened when the character was created, this was very, very important in tracking data, in telling you what to do as you're creating your character. In Release 18, it's even more important to check what has been automated and what hasn't been automated. So normally when you open your character sheet, if it's not a new character, you'll be taken to the main tab, and to open the character generation tracker, you just click the tracker button and that will populate the data. So here it's telling you to start at an ancestry, click the one ancestry button, and then drag drop an ancestry link to the PC. I'm just going to create a dwarf because there's a couple of things in the heritages there that show how the automation works. So I drag and drop a dwarf into the character generation tracker. You can see that it tells you there's various things that have all been done here automatically because you've actually got a dwarf, and it's presenting a dwarf heritage selection. We need to select the Dwarf Heritage. It's showing you all the Dwarf Heritages across all of the various sources that I've got open here, which is the core rules, the Advanced Player's Guide, and the Lost Omens Character Guide. It's also showing you all the uncommon heritages, the ones that are essentially cover additional heritage options around the base ancestry. So things, like half elf, half orc, and various others. Aasimar changeling, because you can be a half elf dwarf, a half orc dwarf. You can apply a lot of these uncommon heritages to your character sheet. As usual with uncommon entries that aren't any rarity that isn't common, you need to consult with your GM if it's okay to use those. But anyway, I'm going to have a look at the Dwarf Heritages. So there's a summary table that I can click here to just see the Dwarf Heritages. Something new in Release 18 is that some of the core DLC now has the source data available within these grouped list windows that display more data, so you can see where those actual entries came from. So as part of this demonstration, I'm going to look at the Forged Dwarf, because this has some automation actually coded in against it. We can tell that because there's a little a here. You can just see that between the level and the name of the feature, and that just tells you that there will be some automation applied when you add this feature to your character sheet. So when the Forged Dwarf and heritage is added, there will be certain automation actually applied. Now, by default, the code for that automation is hidden, because under most normal circumstances, you don't need to be aware of it. You just need to know that it's actually there. But we can see that code by enabling a campaign option. And this is only the GM has control over whether that's enabled or not. And if you scroll down to the bottom, show ability automation fields, that can be set to on, or it can be set to edit only, or it can be set to off. So on will show the data in those fields all the time. Edit only will only show the data when you're editing that individual record, and off doesn't show it. So I'm just going to change that to on, reopen that record, and we're going to see the actual effect, the automation that is being added there. So the automation field can have multiple entries in here, each of them within square brackets. So we can actually see that there's just one entry here. The keyword up front determines what exactly is going to be done. This is an effect. It's a char effect, a character effect, and we're going to add resist, half level, minimum 1, fire, which is essentially what this actual feature does, because it grants you fire resistance equal to half your level. So this is kind of incorporating a couple of new things in Release 18, and I'll just step through those as we apply this heritage. So I'll just go back to my option selection windows, which were presented when I added the Dwarf Ancestry. I'm going to select Forged Dwarf. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to create a fighter, so I'm just going to add my strength. I'm going to boost my strength score as part of the boosts that are available to a dwarf. And we see here that in the charge end tracker, there's been some additional data actually added in here. Now, if you're not familiar with the charge end tracker, this kind of bottom window, the log, is a little bit different than normal. It populates the data at the top. The most recent data is at the top. So if we scroll down, we see we added an ancestry, the Dwarf Ancestry. That did a few things. It's prompting us to add an ancestry feat, which I'll go through in a moment. And then it's saying we selected the Heritage Forged Dwarf. It's saying that there is automation has been applied. It's ran this automation here. It tells you that it has been applied, and then it says feature 2 has been added, but no automation has been applied. Check entry and manually apply if needed. So we'll just go and have a look at feature 2 that was added. So here we have Forged Dwarf features 1 and 2. Feature 2, you treat environmental effects as if they were one step less extreme. So there's no automation associated with that, because that's really something that the rule set itself can't do. That's something more situational that would occur in your game. So that's just telling you here in the charge end tracker that that feature, we can't automate it. So just make sure that you need to manually apply it within your game as that situation occurs. But feature 1 was applied, and we can actually see that here. There's a little equal sign next to it in the character sheet, and that just shows you that there has actually been some automation applied as part of that feature. And looking at it, it's going to add a character effect, and now we're going to go and have a look at actual character effects. So here we see this new window in the combat tab of the character sheet, and we have character effects, and this lists all effects which are really more permanent, that for a number of reasons are being listed here, so they don't clutter up the combat tracker, so that the player has more control over them. They have access to data in the character sheet, and so there's a lot more functionality within these. Normally, perhaps you just keep these entries actually hidden, but if you wanted to see what actually is set up within the effect, you can click the magnifying glass to reveal those next to individual entries, or if there's multiple ones in here, you can click the show and hide all details there. So this effect, when this character is added to the combat tracker, will be hidden on the combat tracker, and it's also got data within curly brackets, and these are dynamic variables that are calculated, that are recalculated all the time. And we can always see what effect is going to be applied for this character if you hover over the title of that actual effect. And this says resist 1 fire. And so you can see that this HLVL-M1 has been translated, calculated to 1, because that's just a way of coding half level minimum 1, which is the resistance of the fire. And so as the level of this character increases, this actual automation, this dynamic variable would change, and the resistance to fire would actually change as well. So if there were any attacks made against this character that had fire damage, that would be taken into account. So we see here there's no actual effects for this character, but the GM has a button here that says, you know, display or do not display character effects. So effects pretty much need to be in the combat tracker so that all actions can get access to them. So say a PC targeting another PC for healing that might, you know, improve healing or something like that can actually be taken into account. So under normal situations we don't show the character effects, but if the GM just wanted to check, we'll just check exactly what's been populated into the combat tracker, they can click that PC effects button to show or hide that data. The PCs have a slightly different way of controlling that. They will have a similar button just to the left of the character effects heading here, where they can show and hide their effects in the combat tracker as well. So the GM and player have separate ways of controlling that. There's a lot more functionality around this automation. I've really only just touched on it, and I'll cover that in a lot more detail in another video. So another entry on this combat tab is attack proficiencies, and these have now been added in release 18 to allow the various different proficiencies for different characters, for different classes, and that can be applied through different feats to actually automatically be applied to weapons. So I'm just going to quickly kind of continue on and create this character as a fighter, and we'll see how the various proficiencies are populated, and then I'll show you how they actually work. So I'm just going to add a background of a warrior, because I know what that is. Just drag that over there. I'll add strength, and I'll add constitution. And then I'm going to add the class of fighter, and I'll use strength. And you can see that as part of that, adding the fighter, there's various your defense proficiencies have been added here at the level, and also attack proficiencies have been added. So simple and martial weapons are expert, unarmed attacks are expert, and advanced weapons are set to trained. So when we add a weapon to this character, that's automatically going to apply the relevant proficiency based off the category that weapon comes from. So let's just, I'll add a long spear to the character. You can see that's been added there. And on the actions tab, you can see that the long spear has automatically got that expert proficiency, as did the clan dagger that we just got for being a dwarf. If I add an advanced weapon, a dwarf morax maybe, Add it to the inventory tab. We can see that's only got the trained proficiency because that's based off just being trained in advanced weapons. There's another couple of entries under here. There's group, which would mean if you had, if you had club trained, then you would be trained in any club. And you can also put in the individual name of a weapon to track the proficiency of individual weapons. That's needed for character classes such as bards and rogues that actually have specific trained in longsword, rapier, sap, short bow, short sword, and whip. So those are actually specifically, individual weapon names. You just need to be careful with individual weapon names because that has to exactly match the individual weapon name. So it might be if you add a +1 striking rapier to a rogue, that it wouldn't pick up on just rapier in here. You'd need to actually either manually change it or just, add in +1 striking rapier in here. Exact name matching is needed because some classes don't have proficiencies in all of the various weapons that have a similar name. An example of that is the bard that we just looked at. They are proficient in short bow, but they're not proficient in composite short bow. So we can't just do a check for short bow in the whole name of a weapon and say you're trained in that weapon. So that's just why we need an exact match on the name there. Now this attack proficiency, when you open a character that was created prior to release 18, there's going to be a one-off upgrade that's actually done as part of that. And I'll just show you that by importing a character that was created previously and show you what happens as part of that import. So I'm going to import the XML from a character that was created prior to release 18. And when I open this fighter, that's when the conversion is going to be done. So we have this message box that just pops up, release 18 update. Attack proficiencies have been built from the abilities tab proficiency data. Verify that they're correct. And now weapon attacks will now be calculated using the best of the matched proficiencies. So what this has done, it's created those, expert in simple and martial and unarmed, trained in advanced weapons, and it's done this based off the previous proficiency data that was stored on the abilities tab. If that's not there, it's just going to go to the base character class record and get it from there. So this is probably going to work well for first level characters, but any characters that have additional proficiencies through progression, later feats and character abilities, that might not match up if this data wasn't updated to reflect that. So it may be that you just need to come into the combat tracker and say, okay, actually I'm now expert in advanced weapons. Just, click to cycle the various proficiency ranks round. If you've got additional ones, maybe you're now you're now master in a longbow, something like that. And you can put that actually, you can set those all up. So just to make sure that you get everything correct and everything calculates correctly, make sure that all of this data is migrated properly, and if not, manually adjust as necessary. So I'm just going to quickly run through a few other features now on the character. Little thing in the inventory tab under the total bulk entry, if you click the magnifying glass, there's now a no coin bulk, so that will no longer apply bulk of coins to the actual bulk. So say if for some reason we were carrying 1,000 copper pieces, that would have added 1 to the bulk automatically. So we've got 6.3 bulk at the moment, but if we just get rid of no coin bulk, then that's just 5.3. So that's just an option that's been brought in there now that by default it's off. Your PC items total value, that now calculates to the highest denominator. So basically it's always going to, 10 copper pieces will be converted to 1 silver piece, 10 silver pieces converted to 1 gold piece, etc., etc. So the total value now calculates across all of to the highest denominator there. there's been it won't work. There's been a level up button added to the charge end tracker. Previously, if you wanted to level up, you had to open you had to drag and drop a character class onto your character. That was kind of relevant for previous versions of Pathfinder, because you could multi-class, but pretty much in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you multi-class via feats, via dedication feats. You don't multi-class by dragging another class on there. So now we just level up by you clicking that button, or you can drag and drop a class like you just did before. So you can add a level, and it's telling you one level of class fighter, add it to tester, and it tells you what to do, add those various feats, your character feat, fighter feat level 2, and so you can then go and work out which of those actual feats that you want to actually add to your character. Note here that there's now a new field, which is a question mark, which is going to show you if there's any automation in those feats. So currently there's no automation actually coded into any of these feats at this point, but that will come in the future as we progress through the functionality introduced in Release 18. Effects have been added to items. So if I go to the long spear here, I can add effects to this item. This will just be a very, very basic example here. We've got an attack +1 effect added to that item, so here we just go there. What you'd more than likely use this for is specific things, like if the target's a ghost, then do extra damage or something like that. So it'd be more kind of circumstantial or conditional effects within here related to a weapon. And so this only supports attack and damage effects. So the attack effects are used when an attack's made, and any damage effects would be used when the actual damage is made. Some more new functionality is the option of allowing players to make NPC-triggered saving throws. So by default, this would normally be off. Again, this is in experimental development at the bottom of the campaign options. But if you set that to on, or if you hold control when triggering a saving throw, alt while triggering a saving throw, not control, it will populate the combat tracker with what's known as a PC roll effect, which then tells the system that when a character makes a roll, it's gonna link it to that actual ability. So we have here, I've got an example here of an air method that has a breath weapon that would trigger a DC 17 basic saving throw. Now, normally prior to Release 18, to make that work, I'm just going to hold Alt here so it does the opposite. You'd roll the reflex save, and it would do it all automatically. The players don't actually roll it, and then because this is success, you'd take half damage. So when that damage was actually rolled, the system would automatically just do half damage, and that all needed the system to make the saving throw. So we all know that players like to roll their own saving throws and everything else, and there's also, they might use a hero point to re-roll or something. So Release 18 has new functionality in it that allows the PCs to make those rolls. So now I'm not holding Alt because the campaign setting is set to have PCs make their own save, and when I trigger that, you see there's a PC roll reflex basic, and it puts all the traits into this PC roll against all of the targets of that creature. So now when I make a saving throw, if I have any effects that add +1 to add any bonuses or penalties to certain types of saving throws, be it a reflex saving throw or something that has the air trait or something like that, that'll all be taken into account when I actually roll this saving throw. So this is a reflex that I've got to go and actually roll. So you see that rolls the reflex, it has the traits against it, it tells you what it was, it's a failure, and it populates the failure in the effect there. It also stores that data in the background, and say if I had a hero point and I wanted to re-roll that, so I just double click my hero point and I'd re-roll the reflex save. Hopefully I don't get worse. I get a success now, so now that changes to success, and it's going to be half damage when we actually take that damage. And so I'm going to so I'll just roll that damage now. 5, and it just does 5 rounded down to 2, half damage, and that's all done there. It's still hanging around there because there may be other effects or something that might be relevant as part of this actual ability. In this case they're not, so either I could put apply all effects within that automation entry, or I can just come into the delete effects and clear all PC roll effects from the system. That's the best way to do it, to get rid of all of those effects. As part of that, spells now have additional features involved with them, so I'm just going to show an example here, Color Spray. Now spells, before they're added to a PC, they have a lot of the actions hard-coded into them. Previously the system would try and parse out and create the relevant actions on the character tab, on the character's action tab, when a spell was added, and that wasn't reliable. And so now a lot of the spells will have these hard-coded in there. We're working through and populating all of these and testing them all out, so they're not there for everything and not accurate for everything at this point in time, but they're certainly a lot better than they were previously. And that will build up and improve over time as well. So now these actions get automatically populated, but also we have a apply to result state entry in here, which can be success, critical success, failure, critical failure, and these will apply the various effects based off the result of a saving throw that's been stored in the system. And there's now a new button here, which is this apply all effects. So with Color Spray, what you'd normally do is you just you'd roll the will saves. You could use the PC roll functionality I've just shown you, and then instead of working out which creatures do I need to apply the dazzled for 1 round to, you just click apply all effects, and all relevant effects based off the save result would be applied. So what might have taken 4 or 5 button clicks previously, and potentially 10, 20, 30 seconds to work out who rolled what, would be 1 button click to roll the save and 1 button click to apply all of the relevant effects. So if you're still watching this far, 27.5 minutes into this video, sorry it's taken so long, there's a lot more features and functionalities hidden under the cover in the rule set. I suggest you go and have a look at the Release 18 information thread on the Fantasy Grounds forum. There's a link in the video description, and also have a look at some of the videos where I'll be doing a deep dive into a lot of this functionality. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoy the new features in Release 18. A lot of the automation and a lot of the spell data I've just been talking about, that's in its infancy, and we'll expand that over time. So if there are any glaring issues, please report them on the forums so that we can look into them and get those fixed and make the rule set even better. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.